Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode on Leading for Wellness. Today, I'm really excited to introduce our guest, Andy Dahlen, who is a CPG and supplement expert with experience in working for General Mills, Beech-Nut, and most recently as CEO of MegaFood. Andy has dedicated the last couple of years in really understanding AI in the supplement space, and I'm really excited today to get into the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us, Andy.
Thank you, Liesl, for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. I'd love you to start with just a little bit of background about yourself, and maybe we can get into what you've uncovered over the last year in the realm of AI.
Sure. So I am a consumer packaged goods marketer by functional training, having worked, as you mentioned, at General Mills on lots of different brands, both large, iconic food brands like Green Giant and Pillsbury, as well as smaller challenger brands like Cascadian Farm and Larabar in my time there. I subsequently went to Beech-Nut Nutrition, which is in the baby food space, and there was a need for that category to be disrupted and, frankly, for that brand to be transformed. So as the head of marketing there at Beech-Nut, was instrumental in the transformation of the brand and the business model there. And for the last 6 years up until October, I've been leading MegaFood, a dietary supplement company in New Hampshire, as you say.
That's amazing. What a great background. How do you see AI being used in the supplement space right now?
There is so much happening in the AI space, just to start with, and there's a lot of opportunity in supplements, and there's a whole host of different brands, partners, suppliers, co-mans that are striving to embrace and learn and keep up and really understand how it can benefit them, and then tapping into that power of AI and what it can do.
Absolutely. I can imagine as far as research is concerned that, AI is going to be super helpful, just putting all the information that's out there on a certain ingredient or a certain product together and having quick access to really useful information. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. That's the first area that I started with. Roughly a year ago, I felt like I and the organization were behind in the space and leaned in. And that was the first place that I started. I spoke with Akash Shah, who was the co-founder of Care Of and had a startup in the space, Ingredient AI, that really tapped into the fact that there's opportunities to learn more quickly about ingredients and what they can do. Any space where there's a lot of reading or writing involved, primarily reading, AI is so good at. I mean, there's many other spaces as well, but we started there. And the premise being that the time it takes to research any given ingredient, find all the applicable studies, read those studies, summarize the claims we can make, took a lot of time for nutrition science teams in my last role and throughout the industry, frankly.
And how do you see that changing with AI? Are people going to lose their jobs?
No. Well, that's my gut reaction to that. But, people that my experience with really embracing AI and learning about it, and the opinion of experts who are much more qualified than I am, is that there's so much opportunity in partnering human and AI, and really AI can amplify and supplement and speed up a lot of things to free up for your leaders, your teams to really do more of what they're really good at and challenging and thinking and doing some of that work. I've listened to a lot of podcasts on AI. Inevitably, any podcast you hear the interviewer ask the expert, are people going to lose their jobs to AI? And one of the ways I thought it was said best, I think on an HBR podcast, was that people aren't going to lose their jobs to AI. They're going to lose their jobs to other people who know how to use AI. And I just really think, for organizations, for teams in the supplement space and the food space and beyond, really embracing and learning what the tools can do and the speed with which they can help on numerous fronts and numerous tasks is a huge opportunity that really leaders, employees, and organizations are all in different places with.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I think that the great thing about AI is that you can consolidate information and put things together that would have taken days in the past, within seconds. So it will free you up to do, or free leaders up to do so much more than just, the administrative tasks definitely are going to be taken away. Um, Specifically to the supplement industry, can you highlight sort of what you see happening there and what tools are available right now in the space?
Well, there's numerous tools, and there's specific to supplements, and there's also just specific to anybody running a business and the tools they can embrace. You mentioned just in terms of the days it saves. So I was impressed with the tool and how powerful it was that Ingredient AI had. And as we beta tested that tool, we were finding we were saving about 80% of the time that it was taking our nutrition science team. So that's one space there. There's several partners and vendors in the space that have products that can help. Another partner that I looked to trial was CPG Radar, which can marry the science with existing market data to really see where there's white space for innovation. And so those are a couple spaces, but frankly, on the science and efficiency front, efficacy front, there's great opportunity there to really scan all of the papers and clinical studies out there that support ingredients efficacy, and to do that very quickly, as you noted.
That's really incredible. And being able to sift through what's valid and what's not valid. And definitely on the R&D front, I think that's a huge area that I think we're going to see AI being used significantly. How about other areas within the space? Where else do you see AI making a huge impact?
Well, starting with the ingredients and formulations, also there's significant opportunities for just connecting suppliers, co-mans, et cetera, and doing it very quickly to help folks once they have already saved the time on identifying the ingredient and formulating and the claims they can make. So that's a space that I see growing and more activity. There's also opportunities just in terms of for a supplement company or any company, but to leverage tools in performance management, market analytics, et cetera. And there's multiple different vendors that are participating or having tools and building tools in that space.
That's fascinating. I feel like it's going to permeate every part of the market, and I think you'll either embrace it or you're going to get left behind. How do you recommend companies that have not started using AI to, incorporate that, quickly? What recommendations do you have? How have you done it in the past?
Yeah. First, just to start embracing it and start doing it at leadership levels. I mean, there's several things I've read that said employees are far ahead of leaders in terms of how much they're embracing and using it, but that's not always in an organized fashion. So as leaders of organizations, supplement, food companies, et cetera, embracing the opportunity and learning as much as you can, using the tools, doing that visibly, modeling the behavior, letting your teams know that you're using it, setting the expectation that your leaders are using it. So one, it's just really diving in and familiarizing yourself with all the tools and capabilities out there, which certainly can be overwhelming, but you just start and try and frame up the different spaces and ways it can help you. So that's first, is just embrace it. Second is really look at where the friction points are in your organization and those that you think AI may have the opportunity to help you, where there's a lot of time consumed with various tasks, reading, et cetera, researching, and so forth. So identify those areas, prioritize across those areas, because there's going to be multiple areas where you think your organization can get better and where there's friction there. Once you've prioritized those areas, decide which one you want to tackle first. And from there, start looking at the vendors and reaching out and finding folks that are building tools specific to that need that you have. And that really, there's a lot of ways you can do that, but starting with your network and just your own research online or otherwise, and then finding the vendors. And where a lot of these vendors are at, there's hundreds and honestly thousands, I'm sure, of folks that are building tools to help teams and organizations in AI. Choosing from that list and really trying them. Many of them are in various stages of figuring out how they're going to monetize. So that can be all over the board, but also many of them are in beta stages, and you can be a beta test partner and provide feedback and learn, and it gets you exposure to the tools. And so doing that. And then really importantly, having a kind of a learning plan or an assessment timeline. It's critical that you are clear with what are we going to try and learn and what do we want to know that it can help us with, and set a time frame for when we're going to assess if we can do that, so you don't spend too much time on a given tool that ultimately is not going to be the right tool. And depending on how much time your org can give to assessing or trying a tool, you should be able to do that within 2 to 4 weeks and understand if it's going to have value for your organization. And if it's not, move on and try and other things. And you've got to be open and willing to try and fail on these fronts, just because there's so much out there and not all of it's going to be the right fit for your organization. And then really importantly, figure out the best ways to get your employees involved in learning. As I said earlier, I think many employees are using it in their job, and that's great, and they should be. What I think the missed opportunity can be is if there's not a mechanism to share and a systematic way to share how employees are using it, which tools they're using, what's working,
Uniform, yeah.
not, then you lose the opportunity to share more broadly across the organization, which can accelerate your efforts there, and then continue to engage with peers and vendors to just keep learning more and trying it.
Yeah. It's almost like you've got to be all in with AI, in order to get the most out of it. I can imagine that smaller companies are going to have a more difficult time in really embracing everything that's out there with AI, unless they are very committed to doing that. I would imagine that the larger companies that have the resources to have teams that can investigate AI or even beta test, et cetera, are going to excel faster than some of the smaller companies, unless they are, very dedicated to embracing AI. What are your thoughts on, AI and the different sizes of companies within the supplement industry?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. At first, I came into that was a little counterintuitive to me, that I thought, since the smaller companies typically disrupt on products, that they'd be disrupting in this space. And just given the resources it takes, it's the larger companies that are doing a lot with AI. Typically, those that have the resources to expend on it in billion-dollar companies. I was at an AI summit at General Mills. It was open to the public in the fall, and I was impressed with the number of years and the number of resources and the deep partnership they have with Google. Former colleague of mine who's an HR leader at Edgewell Consumer Products, they've used it in performance management, in multiple different areas, formulation. They're still looking for ways to unlock more in the top line growth of it. But so you're right in that the smaller companies are not as far along. They haven't dedicated the resources. But as I look at AI, I see it as an opportunity, frankly, for the smaller companies to level the playing field a bit and close the gap with the bigger companies, just with what the power of AI can do for them. Now, in that case, they've got to be, that's why I mentioned really partnering with vendors. As a small company, and particularly as you have vendors beta testing and wanting to get their tools off the ground, you've got to lean on them versus trying to create or develop things internally. And some of the companies, even larger companies that have tried to build some of their own tools internally, they've invested a lot of resources in that. And then as they've tested them against tools like ChatGPT, they're finding they're not outperforming them. So they're putting a lot of resources into that and not really getting that return on that. So for the small companies, it's finding those right tools and partners that can help you accelerate the areas that you want to be more productive and efficient in, and tapping into that network.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, the smaller companies really have an opportunity to probably move faster, embrace some of this AI technology quicker. But I think the larger companies obviously have the resources to develop their own AI tools and et cetera. So I think it's a challenging time for everyone trying to figure out just what's out there, what needs to be created, and how to embrace it. I know you're probably the same. I get, 30 or 40 emails a day of different AI or technology, applications that are being promoted, to our business. And, it's overwhelming to understand what's what's relevant and what's not, and what to pursue. So I think that's the challenge we're facing today, is that there's so much out there. We're starting to become so much on the market, and not having the ability to distinguish between what's great and not. Specific to the supplement industry, what do you think our challenges are going to be in embracing AI?
I think that the challenges we've been talking about, just of organizations, leaders, and teams being overwhelmed and not knowing where to start, that applies in supplements as well.
Not having a plan, yeah.
Yeah, is having those, and then really um, demonstrating or finding results from some of the tools that are currently out there to sort through the science and efficacy. I think that as I look at the opportunities in supplements, consumers are going to continue to be very proactive in their health, in my opinion, and what we've seen the last several years. And AI is going to make it a lot easier for them to more quickly educate themselves on the science and efficacy. So keeping up with that is going to be really important for supplement companies, and frankly, ensuring that they've got robust science and substantiation on their products. As the accessibility of information on science, efficacy, what's clinically proven and what's not, becomes more accessible to consumers, those with stronger science and substantiation are going to win, because that AI is going to be capable of sharing and communicating that information to consumers, because the access it's going to have to, and does have, to all the science, the clinical trials, the papers, et cetera. And that exists today, but there will still be a period of time here, and it'll be quicker than we think, probably, where consumers are going to get more access to that and more versed, and or simply just ask their AI tool or agent, what is the most effective supplement, or which one has the best science. And so a challenge is ensuring that the science is there behind the formulations and the ingredients you're using.
That's a great point. So the companies that have the most data available on their products, the science, the patents, et cetera, I think those are the companies I think they're going to win ultimately. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out over the next few years. And like you said, I think it's going to happen very, very quickly. Really exciting time that we live in. And I think embracing technology and AI as leaders is going to be key to succeed. So, I think generally the population, you and I, it's a little bit more of a stretch for us to get there. I think the younger generation, it's part of what they do on a daily basis. So we have to educate ourselves very, very quickly on this and stay up to speed.
Well, I think going back to the supplement, on that exact point, and going back to the supplement companies, many employees are using, whether it's a chat GPT or other tool, they're using AI in their work. But I don't think that's widely being done in an intentional, broad way as an org. And as an employee, sure, but across the org in an intentional way to share that information and have more employees aware of what's working well across the org and what's not in the AI front. And so that's a space where when you've got a lot of your employees using it, the leaders catching up, frankly, to that and embracing it will help have that organizational both knowledge, capability, as well as setting the expectation from leadership on across the organization, but starting with leadership, to really be using the tools, embracing it, and finding ways to innovate faster, to have more productivity and efficiency in a lot of the tasks you're doing, so you can focus on the things that you're differentiating with and best at. That's going to be a significant opportunity, and those organizations that do that, they're going to outperform their peers and their competitors. And so really that's going to be key on that front. And again, as you point out, there's a gap where leaders are not as embraced in just overall, they haven't embraced it as much as a lot of their employees have.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else? I know that you're working with a number of organizations right now, specifically on AI, and helping them embrace it more. And I feel like, you've really taken that to heart. Any advice you have for other CEOs, that are in the space right now that don't know where to start? I know we've covered some of it, but if you can share some specific guidelines and saying, hey, I would start with ChatGPT and then work down to other AI tools, and putting a plan together where you can bring it to the organization and say, this is our AI strategy, or these are AI, recommendations that we want all employees to embrace. And here's the guidelines on how we want you to use that. I feel like that's the next step in leadership, is to say AI is part of our leadership. It's part of what we're doing in order to move the organization forward and have a really structured, well thought out plan on how to maximize AI within the different aspects, whether the business, whether it's operations, whether it's R&D, whether it's marketing, and whether it's business development. I feel like there's going to be AI tools for all those different aspects within a supplement company that can be used. So if you were to go in and sit down with a CEO, today that's in the supplement space, how would you recommend them putting a plan together where they can incorporate structure with AI, as well as be at the forefront of innovation? Because I think that's the overwhelming aspect, is where do we start, and even putting anything like that together, and then implementing it for the success of the organization as a whole.
Sure. A couple of things. I'll just start with the leadership piece. And as you highlighted, just kind of some of the things that helped as I started ramping up that curve. I mean, if a leader doesn't know where to start, where many folks can be at that place. I mean, first, okay, choose your tool, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, or something, and start using it. I think a couple things that have helped me just start. A little bit old school, but there's a good AI book, just Welcome to AI by David Shearer, that I use, that helped frame up and really share more of the history.
We'll put that in the notes. Yeah.
Sure. And then also just podcasts. I mean, I like HBR IdeaCast, as well as some others, but there's a lot of podcasts out there, but you can get overwhelmed by that. You pick a few, you start learning, you hear about some others, and you go from there. I had a former colleague recommend a prompt engineering course. So I actually did that online with Vanderbilt and with Dr. Truls White. And it was there's 6 modules to the course. But anyway, the course really opened up for me further the power of what the tool can do, what AI can do across so many different things. So, that's a relatively simple things, and then playing with the tool. But now let's get to trying to have a methodical plan, or a plan to go after it in your organization. One, every function has use cases. So whether it's R&D or ops, where do I see an opportunity in R&D, in ops? I mean, many smaller orgs, as they're ramping up, if you go down to startups and so forth, they likely don't have sophisticated or developed performance management tools or other things like that. Maybe even training tools, where you can use AI to create a training manual or a manual for the organization on code of conduct, whatever it is. You can use HR tool there, and then you can use AI tools to frankly develop training and training videos. That's something that I know Edgewell has done. And so finding those use cases across each, prioritizing, as I said earlier, where do I see the greatest need? If supply chain is a well-oiled machine right now in my organization, but I'm not innovating fast enough, or I'm having challenge in recruiting, whatever it might be, prioritize your use cases, and then look at where the existing tools might get you from 0 to 30 miles per hour, so to speak, on that given use case, or look to vendors and say, okay, who's got the best tool for demand planning? I've got a big opportunity in, say, forecasting. Which tools is the best for that? And connecting with peers to learn about which tools they've used and so forth, and then prioritizing and using it. And then you've got those use cases across your functional areas. I think the bigger opportunity, and an easy one that I'm not aware is done well everywhere or many places, is tapping into your employee base and both setting the expectation and giving the permission to try the tools, enabling them, providing the tools if needed. And that's where I feel like one thought is, versus you say, I'm going to take a tool and roll it out across my organization wholesale. without a whole lot of training or expectation setting. Take a subset of employees, some high potential employees in several functions, and have them use a given tool for a period of time, a contained period of time, and say, hey, spend this much time on it in the course of doing your job, bringing those employees back together across functions and potentially across tools. You can use different tools in different groups, and sharing out what's working and what's not. And that starts to socialize across the organization, as well as give leadership visibility to the tools and the impact you can make. And frankly, as employees start seeing that, you've got smart employees across your organization, they're going to start suggesting ways that the tool could be used, or asking questions. Can we get a tool that can do this? And so that's how I would guide any leader in the supplement space or beyond to start approaching it and find those use cases and trial with them. I mean, if you can get into a beta test with a partner, or if there's a tried and true app or tool that's further along, you can partner with them and use that. I come back again to and be very clear on what you're trying to achieve, your metrics and your kind of learning assessment plan, the criteria for success, and staying true to monitoring that, so you don't get, go down a rabbit hole with a given tool that ultimately isn't the best for your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going so far beyond Chat GPT, and so the basic search tools that we're all using right now. And I think breaking it down into the different categories within the business and finding specific AI tools for those categories to improve the business, but creating a culture of embracing AI, embracing technology in order to make the business better throughout the organization, I think, like you said, is going to be key for the companies that succeed. AI is not going away, so we either embrace it and maximize the opportunities that come with using AI, or we're going to get left behind. And I think that's just kind of where we're at. So really, really exciting time that we live in, to have all these tools that we can use our brain power now for, more innovation and more, imagination, where before I think we're also bogged down with the administrative tasks of writing emails, of writing training manuals, and things that are very tedious that we can now do with AI, so that we are freed up to do the things that really makes us feel alive. I think as CEOs often, our best time is used in strategy and vision setting and making sure that we create a culture that's collaborative and that can succeed. And I think AI will free a lot of leaders up to do that, which I think is a huge plus. And I think it's also going to create a lot more job satisfaction for people, so that they're not tied down with the things that, do not make them feel alive. That's the thing that I'm really excited about.
Absolutely. And your point on just embracing the tech, again, this is where I come back to that part. For a lot of your employees, they're going to be further ahead maybe than many leaders are. And that's where the leaders need to catch up, and setting the expectation and giving the permission to use the tools really helps further that culture. And then sharing it, being visible, modeling it, and sharing out in a regular way and cadence across the org how AI is helping the org innovate faster and really find efficiencies and productivity throughout the org and continue to get better. And whether that's via town halls or other communication, it really starts to create that culture across the organization. And really, like I said earlier, there's use cases across the board on the marketing side and the creative spaces, which, I'd say that's an area where frequently you can have teams and employees a bit maybe more resistant to AI. And I get that, having come from marketing. But again, I come back to the partnership of human and AI. And that's where AI has the potential on the creative side to really amplify and leverage what the creatives are doing. I mean, several agency partners I know have used it and found really strong results, but they partner it with what their creatives are already doing. And so the tool and the creatives go together on working on that. A couple things that are also important to just note. I mean, AI can get things wrong. And while you have the hallucinations, I find that I don't encounter them that often. And I also find that as the tools continue to get developed and improved and stronger, those I think are going to be happening less and less. It's also important to navigate and figure out how and make sure your employees know if there's proprietary or private company information. You don't want to put that on into any public tool. You got to be really thoughtful. So it's important to, you mentioned guidelines and things like, how we're going to go about this and sharing that with your org. That's a really important thing to incorporate.
That's
Or not
actually
incorporate,
that's
just make
actually a
sure
really
that,
great point. Yeah,
yeah.
that now more than ever, people are going to be able to uncover anything that was published or that's been said, or any data. So I think more and more, we'll have to be careful about what we put out there because AI will pick it up. And so that I think that's a really great point. Well, this is such amazing information. I think there's still a little bit of, in some organizations that I'm finding and that I'm speaking to, there's people are almost shy or feel some shame in saying, hey, I used AI to put this document together or this email together. And they want to, not sure if that's going to be okay to tell their manager that they pretty much use AI to create something. And I think shifting from that mindset, saying, we want you to embrace AI, we want you to make your job more efficient. But at the same time, as you said, you need to have the aptitude to be able to review the information that you get through AI, and modify it so it is accurate and it is on point to how you want to communicate. I think those are going to be more where people's training and skill sets need to be developed, is how to use AI, correct what AI gave you in order to get you the exact output that you're looking for. So shifting from a culture of, hey, it's, you're lazy if you use AI, to embrace AI, but be better at looking at what you're getting and then finalizing your output accordingly. I think that's the shift that a lot of organizations will be making, hopefully in the future. And then, as you said, embracing it for all aspects of the business and having a really dedicated plan on how to implement that across the different divisions within an organization, is going to be the key thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And your couple points there, just from a training standpoint, helping your employees understand the importance of and improvement in output you get from really asking and leveraging AI with the right questions. And so how to prompt and how to ask the questions of the tool. And then, your second point there, really how to judge the output. And so being able to do that, but creating first the permission and expectation so people don't feel like it's some sort of cheating. I feel like so many people are using it and seeing so much power in the tools that I feel like that's hopefully fading and will continue to fade as more and more people. It's just part of what they do every day. And I think for those folks that are, again, not knowing where to start, whether it's an employee or a leader, I've mentioned several places where to start, but some of it's just then dedicate some of your time every day. Hey, I'm going to start out and I'm going to spend this much time. I'm going to look at this tool, or I'm going to read about that, and I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to try. You've got to get in and start trying some of the different tools and using it, and the power of them becomes evident very quickly.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I think keeping that sense of curiosity when it comes to AI and saying, hey, what else can I uncover? What else can I learn? And keeping that mindset, I think, is going to be key in really progressing going forward, and encouraging that from your employees, and maybe even have systems where you reward employees that come up with new AI tools or new ways of doing it or new ways of prompting AI in order to get to the results. That's the kind of culture that I think is going to create the best companies in the future. Is how best can we partner with AI and embrace it in order to get the best results. So we're going to use our minds not to create, but to review AI information, I think, going forward versus the other way around, like we used to do.
Absolutely. The organizations where the leaders embrace it are going to be the ones that accelerate the most. And that's why it's so important for leaders to model that curiosity and encourage that and be vocal and visible in how they're using the tool and understanding they're trying things and not everything's going to work. And that will create that culture of curiosity and trial throughout the organization that will ultimately help them speed up their place on the embracing it, or on the curve of adopting it. And that will accelerate their results as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really have enjoyed our conversation, Andy. I know that there's going to be a number of people that listen to this that would love to learn more about the tools that you've used and that you've used to learn AI in the last year or so. Would you share maybe your LinkedIn account or somewhere where people can connect with you? And then I also would love to add a couple of the tools that you mentioned and the training that you mentioned, and also the podcast, so that people can get access to that in the podcast notes. So we'll add that at the bottom.
Great. Sure. I'm on LinkedIn at Andy Dahlen, and I am from reaching out to me directly, Andy Dahlen, just my name, all one word, at iCloud, icloud.com.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your time, Andy. It was just a fantastic discussion and very insightful. And I look forward to having you back in the future.
Likewise. Thank you, Liesl. Very much appreciate it, and look forward to talking again soon.